use that you won't need to have that much, but we've allotted that amount of time. I put my personal agenda for today up on the board, as my mother always taught me to do. My mother was the best teacher I ever saw, and she said, always put your agenda on the board. And you all know why you should put your agenda on the board?
So you don't lose track.
Thank you, very good. So you, the teacher, don't lose track, but there's another reason too. Why do you think? I heard students. So the students know what you're going to be doing, right?
They stay till the end.
It's always good to have your objectives on the board so the students know that they're going in a certain direction, have goals, okay? What does that also do for the student? It builds confidence in the student that, wow, this teacher actually knows what she's doing, what he's doing. I used to hate going into a class of a professor in college or something, and they were scattered all over the place, you know? And you knew right away that they hadn't planned, they hadn't prepared. So it's always a good idea to put those agenda items up on the board. Now, those are my agenda items, but before we really get into it, I would like you to think about something. I'm going to give you a little saying that I like to use a lot. Do you know what a resentment, or you know what an expectation is? An expectation is a premeditated resentment. Have you ever heard that before? An expectation is a premeditated resentment. Have you ever thought about that? If you have an expectation of somebody and that person doesn't come through, what happens? You get a resentment. I mean, just think about that. If your wife didn't do something that you expected, you get a, well, usually it's the other way around. The wife has an expectation, the husband doesn't do what he wants, what she wants. Wow, you get a resentment. Okay. To avoid as many resentments from you about me today, okay, I would like to have you start thinking about what are your expectations for the next hour and a half, for the next 2 hours or so. So what is your number one and your number two expectation to get out of this class this afternoon? Can you think about that? Just think about it quietly for a second. Your number one and your number two expectation of what you need to get out of the next 2 hours. Okay, I would like you to just share that with your neighbor. Just go ahead. Find somebody, just tell them what your expectations are. Go ahead.
All my chips and water.
He's got his expectation. He wants some water. Okay.
That's pretty much right. Just press the keyboard. Just press the keyboard. It comes back.
Do you have any certification over there, sir?
I want to learn that exam, but I'm trying to figure it out.
That's not an expectation, that's a heartfelt desire. You expect to learn that?
You got 30 seconds. 30 seconds more. Quickly. Shouldn't take long. We want to minimize resentments. Okay. I'd like you just to tell me a couple of your expectations, please. Yell them out. What's one? What do you got?
Learn how to use this book.
Learn how to use the book. Okay, very good. How about
How
you?
to use the listening component.
How to use the listening component. How about you?
How to figure out exam view.
How to figure out exam view. I think Lauren had the same thing.
Presentation tool.
The presentation tool.
And also
Exactly.
the interactive CD.
Interactive CD. How about somebody in the back row? Do you have an expectation, Mr. Lee?
I would say, what's the purpose that you want to achieve that day? What do you want to cover from such age to such age, and then you can finish that.
So how to do your lesson for the day, how to set out your purpose for the day.
Right,
the lesson.
and what type of exercises you want to use in order to make them understand the concept.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Yes.
You know, the variations. Variation how to present the material, like not just the pair words, how to make it in a group of 3 or group of 5.
Very good. Interactive variations. Yes.
Pacing?
Pacing, very important. Pacing. Pacing is very important. Anybody else? Anything else you want to throw out there? The more I know, the more I can cover. Make sure I can cover them all. Okay. Here's the agenda that I have up here, and we will incorporate what you said in there, I believe. First of all, we're going to do just a basic overview of the series. I know we all presented to you a couple months ago, but you may have forgotten the components. That won't take very long. The bulk of the time will be spent on number 2, doing a unit walkthrough. And I've decided today to do 2 unit walkthroughs. We're going to do from out of book 1, and it'll be the review of some of the material I covered when we first introduced the book to you, okay, out of book 1. But then I want to work from book 3 as well, because book 3 has some different things. And in fact, I should ask at this point, how many of you, because I know you're all teaching from different levels, how many of you are teaching from book 1? Raise your hand. Wow, good half of you. How many are teaching from book 2? Another half. Book 3? Fewer. And book 4? Fewer still. Okay, that's pretty typical. All right. So that's my reason for wanting to do book 3, because the book 3 and 4 are similar, and books 1 and 2 are similar, and there are some differences in them. Okay. We're going to talk about some things in the unit walkthrough. I'm going to branch off a little bit just to give you some background knowledge on teaching vocabulary. Okay, we're going to teach you a little bit on teaching vocabulary, a little bit on teaching grammar. So this is kind of bonus material that's not in the book, but I'm going to teach it to you anyway, on some reading skills and how to teach writing, some tricks for teaching writing. Okay, because I think those are good things that you can take from your classroom for free. We will talk about the presentation tool, the interactive CD, and we're going to go through Examview. And if we have time, I wanted to show you some tricks on the interactive whiteboard, which raises a question. How many of you have a beautiful room like this to teach in? All of you? Only 1, 2, 3, 4 of you.
Yes, you do.
Okay. So 4 of you have a beautiful room like this with an interactive whiteboard. Do the others have an interactive whiteboard?
Smart board. Smart board.
Smart board?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, very good. Let me first of all explain what is an interactive whiteboard versus a smart board. You know the difference?
No.
Okay, good. I didn't either until this happened. An interactive whiteboard is like facial tissues. Smartboard is like Kleenex. You got that? So Kleenex is a brand, Smartboard is a brand, interactive whiteboard is what this is.
Generic.
It's the generic term. So another way of saying it is, okay, automobile, Ford, Chrysler, Hyundai, Lexus, whatever, okay? So in the industry, it's preferred now that you say interactive whiteboard or IWB. Interactive whiteboard, you know how we have acronyms in teaching for everything? IWB. So, oh, there's the IWB, okay. Instead of smartboard, because the other companies that make IWBs get a little bit offended. And
Sounds
in
like
fact,
some sort of bomb on the rack.
that's exactly, yeah. This is actually not a smartboard. Okay, but anyway, that's just a little FYI. Oh my God. There we go. Okay. So we're going to cover a little bit of that at the end. Does that sound like a good agenda? And we will take a break about halfway through. You're going to get some water, take a walk, etc. We're going to take about a 5-10 minute break. So let's think about the components. All of you should have received all of your components in your mailbox or wherever from Steve. So what do you have? We have handed out some because we figured some of you probably would not bring them. That's okay. What is the most important piece of this whole English in Action series, do you think? Which piece is the most important?
Student book.
The student book, right? So you should all have a student book, and there are 4 levels of the student book. In fact, if you take out one of your student books now, and if you look at the back, look at the back of the student book, you'll notice there are 4 books up at the top, and those are the 4 different levels. Okay, so the lowest level is blue, number 2 is green, number 3 is purple, number 4 is orange, okay? So it just depends on which level you're going through. And I'll tell you, the students love to kind of brag about which level they're in, and they often do it by colors. Well, I'm in the orange book, you know, that's the highest level book, the lowest side of it, or whatever. So we always color coordinate them as all publishers do. That's just the way this is set up. Now, the student book is the most important book. In fact, it's really all you need. If you're a good teacher with experience, you just would need to teach from this to make your lesson plans, etc. You should have enough in here to teach from your classes, okay? That's old school. That's the way I learned when I was teaching way back in the late 70s, believe it or not. You just have student books. Fortunately today, though, publishers have come up with teacher's guides. So just take a quick look at your teacher's guide if you have one handy. And what do you notice about your teacher's guide? Inside you have the student pages, and around the student pages you have ideas and suggestions for teaching, little lesson plans, okay? So you can find that there are 2 ways to do this. You can either use the student book alone by itself, or you can use the teacher's guide as well, okay? Now the teacher's guide does provide a lot of material. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I would recommend getting a teacher's guide because not only are there teaching suggestions in there, but there are various answers and things like that, and things in the back as well. Okay, what other components are there? There's also, there are also audio CDs. Okay, and I don't know, did you all get those?
Yeah.
Okay, there should be some audio CDs. And we'll go through this a little bit because somebody had questions about it. But usually there are 3 audio CDs inside, and inside you have the page number, and it basically tells you which audio you're working with, okay?
What I like though is in the student book itself, it does tell them which track and which CD to use.
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, if you just open up to any page where there's a listing, it actually tells you, the teacher, where they are and also the student. Now, just so you know, this audio CD, I don't think your students get this, do they?
They get in the book.
They get one, but it's not that.
It's in the work.
Okay, let's make a distinction here. That's a very good point. Besides the audio CD, these are what we call the classroom audio CDs. These are the CDs for every listening exercise in the student book. Okay? These are not the audio listening tape scripts for the workbook. There are additional listenings in the workbook, and where do you find the audio for this? In the front of the workbook. So, bottom line, there are 2 sets of audio CDs. One set that you, the teachers, get that goes along with this, and one set that the student gets along with the workbook for the workbook. Do you understand that? Now, you're going to say, well, what if the student wants to listen on his or her own to the audio that's in the student book? What can they do? Well, again, we have the interactive CD-ROM. Now, I don't know if your students are getting this in their bundle or not.
No.
Okay. Usually the students don't listen on their own to the student book page, but if they did, this is something maybe down the line, as you're working with English in Action, if you people like this enough and you think your students want to have the listenings in this interactive CD-ROM, and we only sell this for $1 extra with the book. The students can get this plus interactive activities they can use on their computer. Okay? So this is a nice little bonus that we can add to it next year if you like it. Yes?
You know, I really recall that when we ordered, I thought they were getting a book and some CD also.
With the workbook, yeah.
Well, there's a
That's what we
workbook.
were told.
I mean, the student book
No,
with the
we were told
CD.
they were getting 3 items, and I don't think they meant the thing that's enclosed in the workbook. I thought they were
I told my
getting the
students they're
CD.
gonna have 3.
Yeah, that's.
Well,
what I
you have a
thought.
CD in the workbook.
Well, then that's something we'll talk to Steve about this, because I'm not sure.
Yeah, I recall it distinctly that they were going to include, I thought it was the CD-ROM.
Especially after you said just $1.
Yes, just one.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it was $1.
Yeah, I know I mentioned it. Well, let's talk to Steve afterwards about that, because that's something that's, anyway, what's nice about it too is it has computer activities in it as well.
That's
So
right,
if
the
they have a
students will
computer at
like
home, they can take that, okay? We'll work that out with Steve, and we'll show you how it works today. Okay, so let's just get back to the main components. Number 1 main component is what? The student book, and then you also have the workbook. Now, these are additional exercises, and we will go through the workbook in more detail in a minute. For the teacher, you have the teacher's guide, and there's also for the teacher, as was mentioned, I think it's Laura? Lauren, there's a presentation tool, and we'll show you how that works. You can use it on an IWB. You all know what IWB is now, right? An interactive whiteboard. Or if you don't have an IWB, you can use it on a classroom, just a projector on the wall, and it works very well as well. Okay? And if you don't have a projector on the wall, really you can't use it, okay? This is technology. And that's just the way it is. I know I used to teach in church basements and various places back in the old days. We only had paper and pencils if we were lucky. And so I know that's the way it is in adult education. Okay, the final component, and some of you mentioned this already, is exam view. And this is the assessment program, okay? And we will go through this in more detail. In fact, this could be a possible solution to, I think it was your question about, oh, maybe doing a pre-test the first two weeks when they're in class, making sure they should be in my level, etc. So that's another option. Okay, any questions about the components? Are there any questions about that you would like to talk about?
Yes, I'm confused because I had none of those and then the teacher here. What is the teacher's